I probably learned to read relatively early on. My family didn't have a lot of cash. My parents were immigrants. So the library became our best friend, and I'd check out as many books as the library would allow me to take, and I think at the time it was 50. And I'd stuff them in my saddlebags, and I'd bike home. I'd start a new book, and boy, I'd have to finish it before I could go to sleep at night. So I'd have a flashlight in my room, and books. Books have just always been something that I've loved, and I'd rather read than eat. I had one teacher in 5th grade that every afternoon, right after lunch, she would read to us. I can still remember the stories this many years later. And I knew then that that was important, and it was something that I wanted my own children to have, that love of stories. We hear that from our customers as well. Oh, keep on reading, Mom. We just don't want to stop. My husband and I lived in a missions community, and all of us had the same dilemma of what to do with our children's education. All of our students were bused to a very substandard school on the opposite side of town. We put our oldest daughter in the local Christian school, which was a huge chunk of our missionary support at the time. And then it came time to have Luke go to school, and he went to kindergarten for the year. And then it was time for Janelle to go to school, and it was like, we actually can't afford to do that. So my husband came home. He visited a family that was homeschooling, and he was super impressed with their kids. They were articulate and sharp and asked good questions, and he went, oh, we should do that as well. And I'm going, you're not putting me in that box. I don't want to do that. I adore my children. They're wonderful. But as an introvert, to be with them 24/7, I thought, I don't know if I can even do that. We prayed about it, and because our support was at a particular level, I thought, well, I could probably do it for a year. Nobody can ruin their kids in a year, can they? And I found out that I actually just really loved it. I loved being with my kids. I loved spending time with them. I loved learning with them. So we would start homeschooling by 8 in the morning, and we'd be done usually by noon. My husband would read to them in the evening, and I would often hand him books that I knew would make him cry. And he'd be reading along, and he'd start slowing down and getting kind of choked up, and the kids would kind of look and go, what's going on, Dad? I felt it was very important for my children to recognize that it's okay for men to have emotions and to cry. And my backyard neighbor, she and her husband had been missionaries in Morocco. She said, Sarita, if you think about how hard it is to pick materials here, it's 20 times harder overseas. So what we need to do is pick the best of the best and put it in boxes and send it to friends of mine who are overseas. Because the number one reason people came home from the field was they couldn't get along with their teammates. Thought I can't do much for that. But the number 2 reason was they didn't know what to do with their kids' education. I thought, wow, if I could help somebody stay on the field for 1 more year by making education easy, wouldn't that be a great thing? I thought, and I'm a pretty organized person. I'd probably do that in the afternoons while my kids nap. And so that's really where it started. I'll pick the books, and she helped write the original schedules, and we put together packages and mailed them out to friends of hers that were living overseas. We opted to have a history theme as part of our framework. We felt it was very important for kids to understand how the flow of history works, because so many of the things that happen in our world are tied to the history that they've studied over time. We picked books for teaching history, and then we would plug in titles that would make that history come alive. So for example, when they were studying the Revolutionary War, then you would have them read a biography on George Washington, and you'd read to them Johnny Tremaine, which takes place at that same time period. So the kids would go, oh, we met him here. Oh, I've heard of him. This is somebody that's familiar and I've heard of again. Lots and lots of linking. Seems to be a very effective way of teaching kids. At Sonlight, we schedule every book. I wrote the IGs, and I used mine every single day. And at the end of the day, I know I had done enough. I didn't have to fret. I had done everything I needed to do. Perfect. Who doesn't need that freedom? People sometimes ask me, this is so much fun. Are my kids learning enough? We thought, well, let's test that. I know my kids are sharp and engaged and have an understanding of the world and have great vocabularies, and they're doing fine. So we started a scholarship program because we wanted to find out whether or not this worked for all students that were out there. And the test scores are phenomenal. A couple of years ago, I had an opportunity to interview our different scholarship winners, and they were articulate and sharp and going places and purposeful. And I thought all they did was sit and read books with their parents. And how great this is to have this fruit of these wonderful kids that are just going out and doing amazing things. So yes, literature-based, sitting reading with your children, having a wonderful time, it works.